Do you know how many Christian denominations there are? There's like 9,000 of them. But they all profess to believe the Bible. They all profess to believe in God, right? So how do you choose not only between these, right? Christianity is the one we've decided, but how do you decide which is which as far as the Christian religions? Because we see the evidence from God, right? We see in our brain, our eyes, our hands, anatomy, physiology, that we're about not just passing on the genome, but God is interested in us and also interested in making us happy. But here's the issue. How many of you have played the game of telephone? Who's played the game telephone? Do you know the game of telephone? Basically, you whisper in someone's ear and you go around the room, and at the end, what's the message? Is it the same? But here's my question though. What if you played the game of telephone with only 3 people? Or maybe 4 people? Maybe you had just a few generations. Do you think that would be more accurate? What do you think? Of course, right? Because the more people you get, the less accurate it gets. So what I'm saying is if you could talk, maybe not to the people with creation, maybe you couldn't talk to Adam and Eve, but maybe you could talk to someone a few generations later. Do you think it would be more accurate? If you could actually talk to them and say, what was it like? Then yes, you could have some accuracy, right? But here's the thing. These are the common phrases they use in telephone, right? We try that, and it ends up being like nothing like it by the time you're done. But let's talk about the largest atheist country in the world. The largest atheist country in the world is not Japan. They're the most atheists, but the largest atheist country. It's China, right? We just had the Olympics. China was this close to beating the United States, but we beat them anyway. No, just kidding. But that's the thing, is that that's what we're about, right? We don't realize that China has such an amazing heritage by being not only the oldest language in the world, but their language has been utilized still. Did you know that? Their writing is still used. So they're the oldest language that's currently used and has been continuously used from the beginning of time. Yes. Yeah, but Hebrew, the reason why Hebrew is possibly the oldest, but maybe not, the written language didn't come about until much after Chinese. That's the only problem with Hebrew. So it's not quite the oldest. And the other reason why is, you'll see why I can't use Hebrew for this presentation, but that'll be at the end. We'll talk about it. They were also the origin of Buddhism, right? China, most of you think about Buddhism. I mean, even though they're atheists now, but before that, people think about Buddhism. But here's the thing. When you look at the language of the Chinese, it is actually pictographs. And pictographs mean that it's a picture of what it's trying to say, okay? So even though you don't speak Chinese, it's okay, because you'll be able to figure it out. So the Bible was written basically about 1500 BC, but the Chinese language was like 1,000 years before that. So that's the weakness of Seventh-day Adventism, is people say, oh, you're just the new kid on the block. When did you start? 1844? Oh, you're just new. You copied everybody else, right? That's what they accuse Adventism of. But let's see if that's actually true. Now, in the Chinese language, when you try to say sky or heaven, that word is qian. When you say qian, that means sky or heaven. It can also mean God. But you know what's interesting is, think about it, it's a pictograph. So how would you draw sky or heaven? What would you make it look like? How would you draw it? If you were going to decide on the Chinese language. Yes? Well, yes, but why would you say that? No, but that's because you're Christian though, right? Yeah, you probably like clouds or whatever. You draw something in the sky, right? That would make sense. But you know, it's interesting for the Chinese, when they say Qian, they say the Great One. Did you know that? One, if you don't understand why that's one, you can talk to me afterwards and I'll explain it to you. It's one. Great is actually a very interesting symbol. This symbol is a person, okay, or being. This upside down Y, and what makes you great is the cross here, okay? So you say the Great One is heaven. And that is the word in Chinese for sky or heaven, but it also can mean God. So tian can be God. Now, how would you draw a spirit? Ling is the word in Chinese for spirit. There's also an evil spirit, which is gui, but we're not going to talk about that one yet. We'll talk about it later. But spirit, how would you draw the spirit? How would you make, what would it look like? What do you think? How would you draw a spirit? Well, what does a spirit look like to you? Like an angel. But again, that's your Christian sort of background, right? But here's what the Chinese drew. When they think of Ling, this is a good spirit, not evil spirit. They think the one over the water in 3 persons that can do anything. That's Ling for the Chinese. And that's another word for God. But where have you heard this description of spirit before? The one over the waters, or covering the waters, in 3 persons that can do anything. What? Who? Genesis 1, right? When you look at Genesis 1, in the beginning God created the heaven and the earth. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was on the face of the deep. And the what? The Ling. That word there is Ling. The Ling of God moved upon the face of the water. And then God said what? Let us. How many is us? In English, it's more than one, right? That's all it means. But in Chinese, Ling has always been 3. Ling, by definition, is the triune God. But wait a minute, that doesn't sound very Buddhist, does it? That sounds more Christian, right? Well, let's take a look. This is another word for God. This is Shangdi, but it literally means the heavenly emperor. Interesting. So Tian, Shen, Ling, Shangdi, those are all words for God in the oldest language on this planet. This is Shen, and it means the one that was revealed in the garden to man. So how do you create something? When you create something, what do you use to create something, generally? What part of your body do you use to create things? Your hands, right? So an easy way to say create would be something in the middle of your hands, right? But that's not how the Chinese understand creation. When they think about creation, it is this. This is first. The man of dust that is living. Now, first, that seems kind of a funny way to describe first. And of course, you've heard that, right? That God formed the man of the dust out of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. So man, remember, who remembers the other symbol for man or being? What was it? The upside down Y. Yeah, the upside down Y. Yeah, exactly. So this is dust, and this just means alive. This is going to be important. Remember that. Okay? So when you create, the word create is actually the 2 Chinese characters for walk and talk. Do you see how walk looks like walk? Can you see that? Can you see the person taking a step right there? It's a pictograph, yeah? See it? So walk and talk is to create. Because remember, how does God create? Does he create with his hands? Or how does he create? That's right. For God did what? He spake, and it was done. He commanded, and it stood fast. The Chinese understood that creative power was in the word. Did you know that? There is power in the words that you not only hear, but in the words you speak. And the words you speak will not only affect others, but it will affect you. That's why a lot of these programs, have you ever heard of these programs where you do self-help or self-empowerment? They tell you to speak words to yourself. Speak what you want to be to yourself. Because they recognize the power of words. But the real power is the power of the word. Because the only thing that has true creative power is the word of God. And when you speak the word of God, you are speaking words of power. Not just to the other person, but those words that come out of your mouth, they will in turn affect you. And that is where true power comes from, is the word of God. So this is another symbol here to create, speak to the dust that's alive and walking, and that creates, right? So what about complete or finish or done? The Chinese word for complete is two people that are the first, home, that's complete. Right? Can you see that? The first home is complete. This home is kind of like a covering or something over it. So God created not only man, but he created male and female, right? That's why it's two, right? Not three, it's two. So garden, we've already looked at. This is garden, like it's an enclosure, but with four things coming out of the middle of it. And when we look at Genesis 10, there was a river watering the garden that flowed from Eden, and there it was separated into how many headwaters? Into 4 headwaters. So here's another word for garden. And it is made up of several forms. It says the dust, 2 people that speak in the enclosure. These are the 2 people right here. Okay? Where was the garden? Do you remember? Where was the Garden of Eden? What direction? It was in the east, right? But for the Chinese, what direction would it be? It would be west, right? And that's exactly what we find. One person in the garden is the symbol for west in Chinese. They understood that the garden originated west of where they were. But how would you draw happiness? This is an easy one. How would you draw happiness? Smiley face, easy, right? No, Chinese said, one man with God in the garden is happiness. If only Adam had believed this. This is true happiness. You and God in nature. That is true happiness. But Adam didn't believe that. He believed that he couldn't be happy without who? Eve, right? Eve was the one that he fell for. And it still happens today. Everybody believes that they can't be happy unless they're with someone. And I'm here to tell you that the Chinese knew that just you and God alone could be happy. And that is what you need. And that is the problem, is every person that I know, all of my friends, young people, they compromise by being with someone who they know doesn't love God. They know that person doesn't love God. They know that person's not going to heaven. But they're with them because they believe they can't be happy any other way. I'm telling you right now, you and God can be happy. Just you and God alone. And it's not until you're happy in God alone that you are ready to share your life with someone else. Now, here's something that's necessary or wanted or desired. Not necessarily happy, but the woman plus west is desired. And if you break that down again, it's actually one man in the garden with the woman is happiness. How would you say naked? How would you draw naked? Like a good naked. Like an innocent naked. Be like a baby, right? Nope, that's not true. Naked in Chinese is very interesting. It's 2 people clothed with light. Right? But the Bible verse says they were both naked and they were not ashamed. The word for naked is guang guang. And guang guang is made up of 2 words, guang and guang. And guang just basically means a person with light. And do you see the person here? See person right here? See how the person's shining? This is light. The word guang by itself means light, but guang guang just means naked. Now that's very funny. Why in the world would they say naked is 2 people clothed with light? Where did they get that idea from? That's true. It's not from the Bible. Because when you read the Bible, you can't find that. In fact, I've asked and presented this sermon to native Chinese speakers. And you know what they tell me? They say, you know what? I always wondered why. They said, when I was learning Chinese, I would ask my mom, why is this two people of light? Just shut up and learn it. That's what they were told. Seriously, that's what they were told. And that's what the devil is trying to do to you. He doesn't want you to search for God. He wants you to just shut up, right? Not think about it. But the reason why there's two people of light is directly from the spirit of prophecy. The sinless pair wore no artificial garments. They were clothed with a covering of what? Light and what else? Glory, right? It's not just light, but light and glory such as the angels wear. So long as they lived in what? Obedience to God. That's going to be very important. This robe of light continued to enshroud them. And this is the word for glory in Chinese, or splendor. And it literally means two people in front of or over the tree. But it's two people on fire. It's flame and flame. That's the literal word, right? Now, what do you think this is? Two people in front of the tree. What tree is that? What tree is it? Which tree? Is it a pine tree? Is it an oak tree? What do you think? What kind of tree? Yes, because remember, as long as they lived in obedience, the robe of light continued to enshroud them, right? This isn't just any tree, and we'll figure it out. Remember this symbol for tree, that you've identified it as the tree of life? That's interesting. I didn't even think about the fact it was a cross. But anyway, it's a tree, but remember what it looks like, because we'll see another tree in a second. So when you look at Seventh-day Adventism, what does Seventh-day Adventism have to do with ancient Chinese? It has nothing to do with ancient Chinese. Not at all. And that's the power of God of my fathers, is that a language that has nothing to do with our denomination shows in its very essence of everyday words that the spirit of prophecy is part of the same story, right? Because remember, we're a very young religion. We're talking about 2500 BC, right? But now we'll go to, why is there suffering? Why is there evil? Well, let's take a look. What if I tell you something is not allowed or forbidden? How would you draw that? Very simple, right? Whenever they say no smoking allowed, what does it look like? There's a circle and there's a slash between it, right? But that's not how the Chinese understood forbidden. They understood forbidden as jinn. Jinn is forbidden. And jinn is very simple. It's God reveals something about the two trees. Now, are these the same two trees? Look closely. Are they the same two trees? Which is the tree of life? Do you remember? You're the right one? Okay. Which is the tree of the knowledge of good and evil? What do you think? Well, by default, if this is the tree of life, which is the tree of the knowledge of good and evil? Now, how are they different? Tell me how these two symbols are different. Which one is bigger? Which one? Tree of life, right? And the one on the right is the tree of life. Now, what's very interesting is that that is also derived from both the Bible and spirit of prophecy. The angel of the Lord was standing where? Remember when Dario presented last night? There's something important about the right side. This is the right? The position of the angel was an indication of favor. In the midst of the garden stood the tree of life, surpassing in glory how many other trees? All of the trees. How did the Chinese know that? How did they know that? How could they possibly know that? That's the question, isn't it? Its fruit appeared like apples of gold and silver and had the power to perpetuate life, right? At the very beginning of man's existence, a check was placed upon the desire for self-indulgence. That's our issue, right? The fatal passion that lay at the foundation of Satan's fall. The tree of knowledge, which stood where? Where was it? Near the tree of life. The Bible doesn't tell you where they were. Do you realize that? But we understand that they were near each other. The Chinese also understood that they were near each other. But again, that's from the spirit of prophecy. In the midst of the garden, and it was to be a test of what? Obedience, faith, and love of our parents. While permitted to freely eat of every other tree, they were forbidden to taste this on pain of death. They were also to be what? Exposed to the temptations of Satan. That's an important thing to remember. God did not put the tree of life in some corner of the garden and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil in some other corner. They were together on purpose. That's going to be very important. Remember that. We were to be exposed to the temptations of Satan, but if they endured the trial, they would finally be placed beyond his power to enjoy perpetual favor with God. And I'm here to tell you that if you are faithful to God, you will one day be placed beyond Satan's power. You will be placed beyond temptation and sorrow and sin. That is what I want. I don't want to be fighting with my nature every day, struggling. I want to win the battle. And I'm telling you, you will win the battle with God. Now here's the important thing. This is evil spirit, or gue, or devil. How would you say devil? How would you draw the devil? What do you think? It's not horns and wings. That's a Norse mythology sort of view of the devil. But the Chinese, when they thought of the devil, they said there is a secret man alive in the garden. Where is that description found? Where did the devil first encounter our parents? In the garden, right? And was he like, hi, I'm the devil? Was he himself? Or was he in secret? He was secret, right? So when you look at the symbol for devil, there is secret involved in him. So he masked himself, right? When you say the word temptation or tempter, you see something very, very interesting. How would you say temptation? Well, probably the devil would be part of that symbol, right? Since he was the first tempter. But where was the tempter? Where was the devil when he tempted Eve? Yeah, but how did you know he was in the tree? Yeah, it's not from the Bible. That's right. It's actually found in the spirit of prophecy and also in the Chinese character. The word tempter or temptation is the devil is hiding in the trees. Literally. That's what it means. But how in the world did the Chinese know that the devil would be hiding in the trees? It's not even in the Bible. Did you know that? It is only found in the spirit of prophecy. In order to accomplish his work unperceived, Satan chose to employ as his medium the serpent, a disguise well adapted to his purpose of deception. Satan entered into the serpent and took his position where? In the trees. And you know that because you're Seventh-day Adventist. Not because the Bible said it. It's actually not present in the Bible. But the message of the Bible is the message of the Chinese characters, is the message in the spirit of prophecy. The reason why you know these characters is because a woman named Ellen White was taken in vision and shown the creation. She was shown the fall. My fathers knew because they were there. And they heard the story from the lips of Adam. They heard the story of the fall. They heard the story from their father, from their grandfather, from their great-grandfather. Through the generations, it was passed in unbroken line until it entered the Chinese language. The story of the Bible is the story of the spirit of prophecy, is the story of the Chinese characters. The reason why they all tell the same story is because they are all the truth. Why am I a Seventh-day Adventist? Because Tian, Shen, Ling, Shangdi is the God of my fathers. It's technically the God of my mother's because my mom's Chinese, my dad's German, but anyway, you get it, right? So why am I a Seventh-day Adventist? There are many reasons I'm a Seventh-day Adventist. But the Seventh-day Adventist religion is not the oldest religion. It is the most accurate religion. Yes, we came into existence in 1844, but did you know we've existed from the beginning of time? My religion is the religion of my fathers. The Chinese, before they were seduced into Buddhism, worshipped Shangdi, the heavenly emperor. History shows that they worshiped God in accordance with the Mosaic tradition before the book of Moses was written. Did you know that? I am Seventh-day Adventist. It is the most ancient belief system of all time. I'm not copying off anybody. My religion is firmly established in the oldest language of all time. And that language is still used today. But the problem is, they have forgotten. I was on a plane and I shared a symbol of God. I shared a very interesting symbol. I'll just zip right to it just as a quick appeal for you guys. And the symbol was actually ye. The symbol for ye is very simple. The symbol ye is righteousness. And what is righteousness? It is the Lamb over me. Very simple, but very profound. The Chinese understood the gospel. The gospel is that you cannot be saved by what you do. In these last moments of Earth's history, in the three angels' message, the same gospel is repeated. How many places can you get the mark of the beast? Where can you get the mark of the beast? Your forehead or your hand. But where is the only place you can get the seal of God? There's only one place. Where is it? In your forehead. Your works cannot save you. Your works can cause you to be lost, but your works cannot save you. Do you know who can save you? Is the Lamb. And the Lamb must cover you. My fathers understood the gospel. You see, we are broken. We are selfish. We must have ye. We must have the Lamb over me. And I shared with this Chinese woman. I said, draw the word for righteousness. And she's like, okay. I said, draw the word for lamb. Draw the word for me. And I said, now put the lamb over me. She's like, huh? I'm like, put the lamb on top of the character for me. What? She didn't understand. And I said, take this picture and squish it on top of the other word. She's like, oh, okay. Now what? I said, well, who is the lamb? She's like, I have no idea. And I said, what major religion has the lamb as its central figure? And she said, oh, is it Christianity? And I'm like, yes. And she's like, wow, that's really cool. But what she doesn't know is that even the symbol for me is hand and knife. So literally, the word in Chinese for righteousness means my hand takes the knife, kills the lamb, and he must cover me. That is righteousness. That is ye, the Lamb over me. Why am I a Seventh-day Adventist? Out of all the religions that I can choose, I am a Seventh-day Adventist because it is the oldest religion of all time. It is the original telephone. It is the telephone with only 3 people. It is the original message, not the new message. And I choose to become sanctified through this message. I choose to ask the Lamb to accept the fact that I have killed him with my own hand and he must cover me. I am a Seventh-day Adventist because the Seventh-day Adventist message is the God of my fathers. My heritage as being Chinese is much more sacred because I am a Seventh-day Adventist. I believe this because it is the truth, because the evidence is overwhelming. If I presented this in Hebrew, yes, it would also point to Christ, right? But why would a language of a country of atheists point towards not only Christ, but to the Seventh-day Adventist Church? Because it's the truth. That's the only way. There is no possibility for conflict of interest. The God of the Bible is the God of the Chinese language, is the God of the spirit of prophecy, and the God of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. You don't have to be ashamed of Ellen White. I am very proud of Ellen White because she points to the God of my fathers. Her message in her books is embedded in the oldest language on planet Earth. I have no problem showing that to anyone. I have no problem putting my faith in the spirit of prophecy. And I don't even have to understand everything. Yes, the spirit of prophecy says some funny things sometimes that you may not understand. It says, don't mix fruits and vegetables. Do I know why I shouldn't mix fruits and vegetables? I have no idea why. But you know what? I don't need to know why. I don't need to know why. Because I trust in God. Tien, Shen, Ling, Shangdi is Yahweh, is Jehovah, is Jesus, the God of my fathers. But he is also my personal God. My life is ruled by him. My life is ordered by him. Why? Because I don't know how to order my life. Why? Because he knows what's going to make me happy more than I know. But if only we would believe that. If only we would not waste our youth and our power and our time and our intellects chasing the wind when we can bow before Shangdi and have him reveal what he has for us today and for the rest of our lives. How many of you would like to say, God, I want you to be in charge of my life today. I understand that you are the God of my fathers, and I want you to show me how to live.